The World Shotgun Championships come up in Belgrade in Serbia, getting underway on September 5. Joining us now, one of the members of the Australian team and the women's skeet, Lauryn Mark, on the show. Lauryn, hello there.
Hello.
Thanks for taking our call. Tell us a little bit about the preparations, just a week or so out from leaving for the World Championships.
Yeah, look, we're in full-on training at the moment. I'm actually in the midst of a training camp, which is great in the lead-up, and we've been very fortunate to be blessed with a lot of additional competition, both nationally and internationally this year, so there really is no excuse for the main team going over. We've definitely had plenty of competition experience mixed in with some good training sessions, so we should all be firing and ready in time for the championships in just over a week's time.
There's been plenty of World Cup events. Significantly, though, the last few months, I think you were competing in Chile, was it, where you guys had some dramas about your equipment?
Yeah, well, actually, I wasn't fortunate to have been named in the team for Chile. I actually came on just after that at the World Cup in Sydney, where I was able to win the quota spot or the place for Australia at the Olympics in the women's skeet event. And then my campaign sort of started from then. So that was just after that World Cup in Chile. But, yeah, I understand there were a few dramas over there.
Tell us a little bit about that event then in Sydney, winning that World Cup quota spot.
Yeah, well, it was a good event for me. I'd say fate took its course. I've got a very busy business and two young children that keep me quite busy, and I went to that World Cup sort of as a last, attempt to try and make something of my shooting after, struggling a little bit after a period of time with the balance in my life. And I guess fate took its course, and, winning the quota probably made me realize that I had a little bit of unfinished business after finishing fourth in Athens and missing out on the Olympics in Beijing, and that, I really should dig in deep and try and have a crack at the London Games. So I feel really fortunate to have been blessed with the opportunity to go to that competition, win the quota, and of course realize that, there is a future still for me in the sport.
You've touched on a couple of, I guess, sort of off-the-course issues which are affecting you and things like that. Can you tell us how that affects you in shooting? Because, it's a very mental sport. You've got to be focused when you're getting out there. How difficult is it then?
Yeah, look, we're in a sport that obviously there's a lot of longevity. My husband, Russell, who, is hoping to get to his sixth Olympic Games is proof of that. It's a sport that, you're not there for a short time, you're there for a long time. And, of course, that means, along the way you have to make some sacrifices or, readjust things in our lives. And, of course, for me, part of my plan was always to, have success in sport, but not just that, but to be successful in the other areas of my life. So, taking the time out to have the children was important to me, as well as obviously to get enough income coming in to support, our sport. And with Russell competing and myself competing, it, introduces another challenge. So, it's one of those things that's been a little bit of a challenge for us just to get that balance exactly right. But I think, we're working it out. It's taken us a few years to get exactly the right combination there. And of course, the kids are getting a little bit older, so that also helps. But, we're both on the mission to train and do what we need to do, and hoping that we've got everything in place now to both give it a proper run into the trials, obviously, and hoping to both be successful and successfully named in the team to go to London.
You mentioned that longevity in this World Championships squad for the event coming up in Serbia from the 5th of September. There is Russell, but you've also got the likes of Susie Balla and yourself, but there's plenty of good youngsters coming through. Your compatriot in the skeet, Laura Coles, and also women's trap, Letitia Scanlon. Plenty of good youngsters coming through the sport.
Yeah, and that's, fantastic. And, I must actually say that our federation, AISL, or Australian International Shooting Limited, has done an absolutely fantastic effort of late. I think, they started to realize that, the sport can't be left to people like Russell and Michael Diamond and, as you said, Susie Bellog. They can't keep going forever. So the reality is that these young guys have been, a bit of an investment. They're coming on strong, and, as you said, there is some very good talent there. Letitia Scanlon has been challenging Susie Bellog, the whole way along. And, Laura Coles, she's, coming along in leaps and bounds all of a sudden, which is great. And the reality is that we need young people in the sport for the sport to continue, and also to keep the standard up, because you need people that are, really close behind you, or that you're really close behind, to push you to get better scores and be at a world standard. And if we don't have, depth, then the sport's really going to struggle at grassroots all the way through to Olympic level. So, it is fantastic that they're doing such a great effort in getting, going well all the way from the people from, that have been there forever all the way down to the ones that are just getting started. It's fantastic.
Lauryn Mark is with us. The World Shotgun Championships in Belgrade in Serbia getting underway on September 5. Part of the Australian team heading to the event. Lauren, we touched on a couple of the youngsters and some of the more experienced and athletes who won at the big stage. Can you tell us about a couple of your other teammates that you expect to do well at the World Championships?
In terms of other nations, or are you talking about in terms of the Australian team that should do well?
Yeah, in terms of the Australian team.
Yeah, look, the Australian team's got a good mix. I'd expect that the ladies track team, which includes quite a few of our good shooters, but I know Susie Belog, Letitia Scanlon, who we've already touched on, and, there's a few of the others going there. I think young Catherine Skinner has also been named in the team. They definitely need a quota. It's very important, obviously, for them to attend the Olympics, and I think that they are a very good chance of getting that there in Belgrade, although they will obviously have some stiff competition. There's also a young kid, Nick Curley, who and Steve Haberman, a guy that has been in the sport for a long time, but again is just hitting some form in double trap, which is the event that Russell shoots. So they should all go really well. And in the men's trap event, I think we've got a young kid, Michael McNabb, who's just nipping at Michael's heels all the time. I mean, he's coming on strong, but needs a little bit more experience, but I'm sure he'll also do well. So we've got a great team. We've got some young skeet shooters coming on, but unfortunately, coming back to the life balance, not all of them have been able to attend, due to other commitments and getting their life sorted out. And that is the other issue with having some young people in the team. They need to, make sure that, they've got their finances behind them. And, but look, all in all, I think we've got a fairly strong team, and we should all fare pretty well at the World Championships.
What do you know about the facility where the event's going to be held in Serbia? Have you competed there before?
Look, the last time I was there, I must admit, I don't have a lot of good memories. The last time I went there, we went for the Grand Prix along with a training camp, and unfortunately went all the way there for 6 days, and my guns never made it to the competition. So this time, I must admit, I'm getting onto this plane a little bit nervous, hoping that this time my guns will make it and I will be able to participate in the World Championship event. The ground itself is absolutely fantastic. The scores that were shot there, even though I wasn't included in that competition, were extremely high. So I expect the scores will be quite high. It's a beautiful range, and I'm expecting some very good results.
The missing of the guns. That's sort of what I was alluding to before in Chile, but I must have got confused because your husband Russell had touched on that when we spoke a few months ago. Tell us about then how individual are guns to each athlete. I mean, it's not like you can sort of turn around to your competitor and borrow their spare one, is it? Or can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, look, it is very difficult. They are very specialized items that are set or they're fit, specifically to us. And, you also hit on this before. It is a very mental game. So when you don't shoot with your equipment, there's always a doubt in your mind. Even if it is fitting a little bit closely, you're always a little bit concerned that it's not your own. So it means you're not at your mentally strongest. The problem is that I'm actually quite small in frame, and I'm also left-handed, which makes it extremely difficult. A person that's maybe of a larger build that's right-handed could probably find a gun that might be semi-suitable, but for me it's almost impossible. There's very few left-handed shooters in the field, and particularly small left-handed shooters in my particular event. And each of the events have, very technically different guns. So they are that specific. Guns are, not like screwdrivers. There is actually a big difference between a right and a left-handed gun, and therefore the fit, it does become very important. And yeah, without your own equipment, you're up against it.
So to quote Malcolm Gladwell, you're almost the outlier in your sport. Yeah. Look, I consider it, a benefit. Us, clever left-handed people, But, it's a little bit of a challenge as far as the equipment goes. But, all in all, once we've got our equipment, there's really no technical difference. But are there many other big-name shooters who are small and left-handed as well as yourself?
That's actually a very interesting question. It's not something I probably have. I honestly can't name a person, but it doesn't mean that there isn't one. I know that the young Italian girl that won the Olympics is left-handed. She's probably a little bit larger than me, but she wouldn't be overly larger. So probably if she had have been at that event, I would have grabbed her. But unfortunately, being a Grand Prix, there was no other short left-handed people, so that made it very challenging for me.
So will you be travelling in the hull of the plane then to Serbia with your weapons?
I actually am thinking I might try to get through with it in my hand luggage and say, and when they actually question it, I'm just going to say, look, you're not taking my gun off me or else. But no, I'm just kidding. I won't nurse it the whole way, but I must admit I'd really like to because I want to make sure I get to the World Championships and can actually compete after all of that travel.
In all seriousness, though, not meaning to be flippant, like travelling with guns for your sport is obviously a difficult thing. Can you tell us about some of the special things that you have to do? Do the guns get packed in a special case? How does that work?
Yeah, to travel with guns nationally is not that difficult. You just declare that they're, a firearm, and then they take them through the special baggage. They generally tape them or tag them in a special way so that they know they're a firearm, and they go off in a separate compartment. To travel with them internationally becomes a little bit complex because all of a sudden then you start to deal with all of the different laws, not only of the country that you're landing in, but also countries that you're actually flying through. So, for example, at Singapore Airport, we need a transit permit. And to fly over the Indian Ocean, you need a permit to fly over that ocean. It's a little bit odd, but I guess, that's where we rely on, our federation to make sure that those things are done correctly. And, being an athlete, we're very lucky that most of that's already done for us. And, they do a fantastic job of coordinating all of that before we get there. And it's interesting that you also bring that up, but in Frankfurt, when we went to Belgrade and our guns went missing, that is partly why they went missing. There was a new process that had been implemented where they wanted new permits for Frankfurt, and there was confusion amongst the staff as to what to do with the firearms once they arrived there. So somebody decided to lock them in a locker and forgot to tell anybody else that he'd locked them away there. So for 3 days, nobody knew where they were. And that was probably due to a change in process as far as how they managed the firearms once they arrived there. And I guess once, you've got all of those things done, then they are supposed to just travel, as long as all of the red tape's been ticked off, they should arrive, when we arrive.
I've heard everything. A permit to fly over the ocean for a weapon. There we go.
Yeah, look, I think at times it's just to make money, but it is what it is, and unfortunately that's what we have to do. We just need to find out each process and make sure we follow it strictly.
Well, I'm sure it's all in place heading towards Serbia. Lauren, we really appreciate the chat. Best of luck to yourself and all the team heading to the World Championships getting underway on September 5. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you.
Australian shooter Lauryn Mark with us here on Sports Overnight.